Denver 8 TV, your city, your source.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Kent Rice. I'm the Executive Director for Denver Arts and Venues. I've never had such a spectacular moment before I got to start speaking, or had to start speaking, either way. But thanks so much to the brass quintet from the Colorado Symphony Orchestra. All of that warm-up was really, really wonderful. So another round of applause. I'll just tell you in advance that my words are going to be a bit of a letdown after all that, but I'll do the best I can to work through a few slides here. We're going to give you some background on what's happening tonight, and well, yes, I already mentioned who was here, but you knew that as soon as you heard them play, the quality of their music. Again, I'm Kent Rice. We're going to get you into some working activities here because we want to get your views on how to reimagine the performing arts complex. And the agenda for tonight, as you can see, is I'll talk for a little bit. Then we have two really renowned, and in our case, we're very grateful for their expertise, renowned leaders from the community who are shepherding the process of reimagining the arts complex. That's Tom Goujon and Mary Lee Utter. We've hired some wonderful experts to help us with the official design and planning part, and you'll hear from them. Steve Steinbrook and John Fontillis are in from New York. Then you guys are going to be put to work. If you're lucky, you had time to grab a cookie. I don't believe we were serving anything too heavy in the way of alcoholic or adult beverages, but later in the evening, I hope you enjoy some if that's your thing. Then at the end, Ginger White, the Deputy Director for Denver Arts and Venues, will tell you how we move forward from here. I'm not going to go over this in detail, but the city's agency called Arts and Venues has a lot of things going on. Reimagining the Performing Arts Complex is frankly the largest initiative we have this year, but we also manage Red Rocks, we have oversight for the Convention Center, we take care of the city's public art program, we have an economic initiative called Create Denver, we handle the Denver Coliseum, we do a lot, and we love doing it all, by the way. What did I miss? Oh, we administer Tier 3 money for the SCFD, for the smaller arts organizations in Denver County. So here's one of the confusing things that we deal with every day, and some of you may be confused, and if you're not, you will be when I finish talking. There's something called the DCPA, and there's something called DPAC, and those are the same letters in reverse order. Well, not exactly reverse, but you get the picture. The DCPA is what's generally known on Denver Center for Performing Arts is up there. So that's really the Bonfils Theater Complex. They present the Broadway shows in the Buell Theater, right there. And obviously they have a lot of live theatrical performances. That whole zone, sorry, I love the laser thing. The whole zone is called the Denver Performing Arts Complex. Now, not everyone calls it that, but that's generally known as DPAC. That is what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about how to reimagine this whole zone. And obviously what we do relates to the Colorado Convention Center, which is a huge enterprise that the city also has responsibility for through Denver Arts and Venues, as I mentioned. So most of the structures here were built in the 70s, and some of you are arguably old enough to have been around in the 70s. Just a couple of you, like me, I think might remember that era. That's when the city, with great vision, erected all of these buildings, one by one, not with the vision for how they might all interconnect and flow, but as they got funding and donors and the city found money, they put these structures up. They're wonderful buildings. They've served a great purpose, and they will serve another purpose for many years. We have what are called resident companies. So each of the four main just go back one second. So I think most of you know this, but just to be sure, we've got the Colorado Symphony, which is resident there, Broadway shows mostly in the Buell Theater, opera and ballet in the Ellie Calkins, and Ellie Calkins is with us tonight. Thank you so much for being here. And again, the theater's there, and for people who drive here, which is many of you, that's where you park. So it's the interrelationship of all of these buildings, but again, 4 main resident companies that put on most of the shows, the performances that we have here. They create the art that people experience. This complex has an economic impact. We did a study last year. We had an outside company do it of about $140 million a year. So it's significant in what it does for downtown. It's a very important driver. And a word up there you may not know, DTD, that's the Denver Theater District. That's a nonprofit organization that has as its purpose activating the arts complex, so making things happen in the Galleria around 14th and Champa. They're great partners for the city and for the resident companies. How did we get here? What prompted this? We had some money to spend. We ended up having less money than we thought to spend. Okay, that's the headline. I can say more than that. In 2007, the voters approved the Better Denver Bond Program. $60 million was set aside for a renovation of Betcher Concert Hall. Money was set aside for a lot of other programs. The Symphony had a funding match of $30 million, which, by the way, is typical. So the Botanic Gardens got money, and Nature and Science, and they had funding requirements also, where they matched some of the money the city was putting in. That was in 2007. 2008 and 9, you may remember the economy went in the toilet, basically, and raising $30 million was not easy. The Symphony wasn't able to raise the money, but the money had been approved by the voters, so something had to happen with it. The Symphony said, look, we know we're not going to be able to raise this money in this environment. That freed up about $57 million. So $3 million was spent repairing Betcher and doing some design work for the initial renovation. $57 million ended up being available. City Council approved of a recommendation from the mayor to redistribute much of that money. And where did it go? It went to other facilities in which the city has an ownership interest, cultural facilities, Botanic Gardens, Art Museum, Museum of Nature and Science, Denver Zoo, Red Rocks, McNichols Building. So other city-owned assets that have a profile in the cultural community. Around $17 million was left for Betcher, which was really a small amount when we started at 60, but you see how we got there. And it was a multi-year process, as you can see. We went to a couple of engineering firms in 2013, that we being Arts and Venues, and said, what can we do with $17 million? And the answer was, not much. I mean, it sounds like a lot of money if you've done a home renovation, because most of us don't have a budget like that, but when you look at a very old building with aging infrastructure and a boiler that is, it's like a great-grandparent kind of boiler. I mean, it just doesn't move as fast as it used to. So they said, you really won't do much that patrons and performers would ever notice. So we can fix the infrastructure, the plumbing, new electrical, but the rest of it won't be very good for people who come into the concert hall. So we said we can't spend the money on that. We need to take a step back and figure out what's the best thing to do. The mayor appointed an executive leadership team. You're going to hear from the leaders of that tonight. I referenced them before, Tom Gujan and Mary Lee Utter. 32 people, community leaders with a stake in what we're doing, and many of them are here tonight. In fact, those of you who are on the executive leadership team, could you just raise your hand? There we go, there's 7 or 8. And that's a good turnout. We ask these people to do a lot of work. This is all volunteer work. There's no payment for this other than kind of feeling better about yourself spiritually, but they don't, and you get a cookie every now and then. But we called this effort the next stage, which is how do we move forward the entire arts complex? We've got $17 million, which won't be enough to do whatever we dream of in the next couple of months, but it's a start. And then when we have a plan, we will find some money to implement the plan over stages, which is how you do any major renovation. what we've done this year is hire a firm called H3 Hardy Collaborative out of New York. We had a process where we interviewed 4 different firms, and we thought these guys were rock stars, so we selected them. In a bit of sort of irony, Hardy, in that name there, Hugh Hardy was one of the original architects for Betcher. So he knew this facility and Denver and our arts complex very, very well. So it was nice just to have some kind of inside baseball talk with him about this. The mayor has a number of, only 3 really, major projects for downtown. And the mayor's been reelected, by the way, so he's going to oversee all 3 of these projects as they move forward. I guess you all knew the mayor was reelected, right? Well, I hope that's not news, but anyway, we've got the same mayor starting in July that we have now, which when you're involved in a big project like this, continuity is a good thing. So there's a kind of tagline, to use marketing talk, which is how can we activate Denver's urban core? And that's the next stage is one of the big projects in that. How am I on time? Ginger, time, am I going too slow, too fast? Speed it up, boom. All right. When you've been in the arts complex and things are buzzing like they were when we had the Derby party a couple weeks ago, or on an afternoon when there's matinees, or at night, this is a very exciting place. But most of the time it looks like this. So there's not casual interaction. People aren't walking around. They're not really shopping. They're not stopping. If they park in the garage, if they're not here for performance, they move on to some other part of this area downtown. Sculpture Park, which is the grassy area right behind Betcher and the Bonfils. Again, 6,000 people packed in there for the Derby party. We have 30 events this summer. It's a very active place, but most of the time it's not a park with people in it. That's something we'd really like to change. We've looked a lot at the entrances to the arts complex and the edges of it, and the entrances are not very pretty and they're not completely functional. That's something we'd love to get your advice on and how to change going forward. Why now? We want to, our arts complex is known all over the country because it has so many halls all connected in one place. It's a major thing. I mean, many people say it's the 2nd largest outside of Lincoln Center, but it needs to be modernized. It needs to have a demographic that we don't have, which is, we don't have too many young people, honestly, coming into the arts complex. We don't have a big Latino complement for the most part. We'd like to change that. And we also would like to get more casual arts experiences. We have phenomenal classic performing arts in our halls. We might need something in addition to that, and some of or actually all of our resident companies are trying to figure that out. The other thing that we haven't kept up to date with too much is the advancements in technology. This is fascinating research. We did a cultural plan over about 1.5 years. We introduced it last year. We worked with Corona Insights, a tremendous local company. We interviewed 5,000 people to ask them about what Denver should look like between 2013 and 2020, and we named the new cultural plan for the city, Imagine 2020. But if you look at how people define arts and creativity, what's interesting, they were asked what had they done in the past year. 76% had attended a festival or fair. So that's a definition of art for many, many people. If you come down to the things that we're providing, let's use that laser I like so much. 56% had been to a theatrical or dance performance. And by the way, that could be something in a high school. That doesn't mean they came here. It's just something they experienced. If you look at opera or orchestral music, 27%. We'd like to have those numbers be higher. But we'd also like to be presenting things in the arts complex that people are attending. I think you get the picture. Our timeline for getting all of this done, the mayor again appointed this executive leadership team in November of last year, so that group has until the end of this year to come up with a very significant document, a new plan for the arts complex. Parallel to that, Denver Arts and Venues is developing a master plan for the Colorado Convention Center. You noticed that, well, you knew, it's across the street. So it's all one big zone, people. We have to figure out how these things relate to each other, the people who come downtown for using one or the other of those, how do they get here, what do they experience when they arrive. We did something called an urban framework design at the encouragement of our Director of Planning, Brad Buchanan, who's here tonight. And the team that did that for us looked at everything that affects the immediate area, the 49,000 employees and students at Auraria. Do they ever make their way across the street? What's the connection between the arts complex and the whole university campus? What happens on 17th Street? Do those people come down here? How's the 16th Street Mall affecting it? What are the spines that connect them? Very interesting stuff, but it's the groundwork for what we're going to be doing with our plan. You know what? Because I got the hurry up sign, I'll let you read that because you can read faster than I can talk. Those are the main findings of the urban framework plan. You've had enough time. There'll be a quiz. But what's really important here are the 4 main goals for the next stage. And really and truly, this is one of the major initiatives of the next 4 years in the city. So I'll give you a moment to look at that. You can see we're dealing with a number of things. Economic viability of the institutions that are part of this. How do we lift the overall cultural vitality of the city? I mean, these are big, big aspirations. So we have our work cut out for us. That is all I have to say, my friends. I'm very proud to introduce the co-chairs of the executive leadership team, Tom Goujon from the Gates Foundation, Marilee Utter from the Urban Land Institute. They have been such devoted leaders since November, and Ginger and I apologize to them this morning for how much we're abusing their schedules with all the meetings and asking for their help, but here they are doing it again, Tom and Marilee.
Well, thank you so much for coming out tonight. We really appreciate it, and the cookies are delicious, so don't hold back on those. Tom and I are both super honored to be invited to be part of the executive leadership team. And just to give you a quick overview of, is it the top one? There we go. This group was appointed by the mayor. It represents a nice cross-section of people who are passionate about the arts, passionate and knowledgeable about urban planning, and about real estate development and community development. How do we build a better city? I will tell you without exception, everybody on that team is passionate about our community and about downtown and making this a place that is very special in the hearts of a broad community, actually even the region. But you can be sure that you are being represented by people that care a great deal and bring a lot of diverse expertise to the conversation. It's a complicated question. It's a complex question. And we've been spending the first, how many months has it been? 6 months or so, really getting background on what, all the different elements you have to think about before you can begin to say, gee, wouldn't it be fun to do this or fun to do that? And first of all, you have to understand the city. You have to understand our, arts and arenas and how that works. You have to understand seat tax. You have to understand what's going on with downtown. You have to understand the facilities themselves, which are sophisticated, complicated facilities. The resident companies and their business models and what they can and can't sustain. And our goal is to support the resident companies and bring in other users as well, and invite a broader section of our population and invigorate that place and make it a more vibrant part of downtown even. So there's a lot of things that we've been getting up to speed on, and we've been meeting monthly. These are to prove that we actually do meet, that we're really here. So we got some pictures of that. But really, so they all look alike, but, but we were all there. And it's been a tremendous group. We also have homework, and we work in little side groups along the way. So if you know anybody on that team, please feel free to interact with them, thank them at least. I think the list is on the website, And if you'd like another copy, let us know. We'll get you the names of those people. And certainly Tom and I would love to have any of your feedback and suggestions. Oops, now that happened to me. I wrecked it. Okay, let me go back. So because it's complex, first of all, there's the basic knowledge about what do you do about a facility like this. And we've met with other cities that have had successful programs, but what works in every other city isn't what's going to work in Denver. So we really need your help in figuring out what should our future look like, what are the elements that work here that we like, and what are the ones that we can invent that will make it even better. Oops, lost this again, sorry. So this is, Tom, why don't you tell us about Miami and what they've done? It's
That one? Okay.
right one, yeah, it's a little tricky.
Good evening. Everybody can hear me? Yeah, so obviously this is not the only arts complex in the world. There are lots of facilities out there, and there's things to learn from many of them. And we did have actually on-site visits with people from Portland, Oregon, and Los Angeles, and Pittsburgh, and it was fascinating to talk with them about their facilities and what's comparable, what's different, how they operate, how they're supported. But there's lots of things out there to learn from, and we just included 3 examples here, just as things we think we can learn some, or examples we can learn from. This is the New World Center in Miami Beach, Florida, and there's lots of things about this that are fascinating, and there's a series of pretty amazing venues associated with it. But one thing it does really well is outdoor activation, and you can see the one image there of the 7,000 square foot screen and live streaming of performances and the kinds of activity it can create, both very programmed and also very casual. That's the kind of activity we struggle, frankly, to create here in our circumstance. You want to do?
The next one is, you got the button?
Oh, I got the button.
Yeah, push the button. Columbus, Georgia, that's a pretty small community. You can imagine how important the Performing Arts Complex was to them. And this is a great example of a public-private venture. So they had scarce resources, like we all do, and came together. The other thing that's pretty interesting about this facility, which is, it has actually a series. It has a 2,000-seat main stage, a 450-seat recital hall, a 220-seat studio theater, administrative space. So like our complex, it has several facilities in it. But this was really done because the university there, it's Columbus State University, needed space. So it was a joint, you could say it's a public-private, because they were working with the university, the city. Actually, the state ended up getting involved and owns the facility. And then there's a nonprofit governance group that's also a player in that to make it happen. It's been heralded all across the country. So, we don't have to be New York or LA or Miami to make a difference. We can do a phenomenal thing here too.
And then this example is in Texas, in Addison, a suburb of Dallas, and it's really an example of focusing not so much on the performance venues themselves, but really the space that connects those venues. And so this is a space that was created for, again, all kinds of sort of programmed and casual activity, but it has 3 actual performance venues embedded in it. It has all the infrastructure that you need to do programming that we often struggle with here, frankly, in Sculpture Park and in the Galleria. But it has ticketing and concessions and other amenities and things. It was really purpose-built with the idea of creating this kind of outdoor environment that could be programmed and could be a performance venue, but also could be enjoyed on a day-in, day-out basis. And so these are just 3 of what could be 33 or 53 examples. But I think we were trying to search experience out there to see who's done a good job of some of the things we suspect are important to activating and making this place more dynamic. So there'll be more of that to come. I'm going to move on to H3, and you heard a little bit about them from Kent. I had the pleasure of sitting in on the interview panels along with some other folks when we interviewed teams of consultants to work on this project. And I'd say from the, for the design team role, H3 was clearly the best suited for this task. And it was for a variety of reasons, some that you might not suspect. I mean, they obviously are enormously experienced in working in arts and cultural facilities. They have an amazing resume of those kind of facilities. But even more than that, I think they clearly brought good urban values. These are urbanists. These are people who understand urban places, and I think their approach was as much about placemaking and urbanism as it was about architecture. Also, pretty clearly have a good track record of engaging people and listening and not just kind of swooping in with the big idea. Also, I think they clearly understood the definition of the problem, and the problem is not so much just a venue problem, but it's really a much bigger question of how do you move from a complex orientation to really kind of a district of cultural activity that's really embedded in the larger downtown. And so we are in kind of a fabulous but a little bit fortress-like complex, and we need to sort of get out of that box and re-engage the community. And I think by the time we were done, we were convinced these were the guys who could help us do that. So Steve Stainbrook and John Fontillis are here. I'm going to turn it over to Steve, and he's going to take us on.
Thank you, Mary Lee and Tom. Can everyone hear me? Great. Oh, she's very angry, but it's not my fault. I'm going to go really fast because brevity is beautiful. And we are in the early stages of our master planning effort. And that means we're here to listen and not talk a lot. And so I will try and speed this along. And so here we are. I wasn't supposed to do this slide. This is embarrassing. Someone else is supposed to say how great we are, but we've done a lot of this. On a good night, about 25,000 seats would be full of rear ends across the United States and performing arts seats. And we probably have planned or designed more centers for arts and culture than any other firm in North America. So that sounds horrible, and I'm embarrassed, so I'm going to move on. What we've been asked to do, or what we've, and the directive of the master plan is to enliven, to diversify, and to sustain the complex, and to do so in a larger context. So there's a complex that's 12 acres. There's a convention center that's about 24 acres, and together you're talking about a huge amount of land, over 40 acres. And then there's the theater district, which is about 164 acres in total. So there's a whole network of opportunities, and while we're focused on the complex itself, we, as Tom alluded to, are urbanists, and we believe strongly in looking well beyond the borders and the sphere of influence of wherever we're working. We've laid out a complicated process for a very complicated project. And on the right, you'll see a green column. And there are 4 important things to note, amongst other things, but those are public meetings. And so this is the first, to kick off. And we're here to gather information, to get your input through surveys, Post-its, comments, emails, however you want to provide information and feedback to us. We're happy to take it. The more, the better. As of today, we've spent about 16 days in Denver since the beginning of the year, so we're committed to being here. We'll never be local. We don't live and work and play here like all of you, and we don't pretend to, but we do take very seriously our commitment to become involved and to make ourselves available whenever it's helpful, and so that will continue with at least 2 visits every month until the end of December. So we will be around. This isn't the last time you will see us. And as of tonight, this makes the 265th touch point, if you will. So we've had 100 one-on-one interviews that lasted an hour. We've had coffees. We've visited venues. We've toured neighborhoods. We've met with the ELT, with arts and venues. We've had conference calls. And so tonight marks the 265th outreach effort, and we will keep doing that, and the more the better, and we feel like the more we understand the community, the more it will organically grow from what you are. We're not here to import anything, because that won't work, and we can't just transplant as nice as Miami is, or Addison, Texas, or Georgia. By the way, that's an H3 project, so you didn't know that, but that's a great example. And so tonight, we have this complicated room for, as I said, a complicated project. So I'll make it relatively simple. If you start in Gallery 1 on the back left, you can kind of flow through the different colored galleries. They're all themed. And if you haven't picked up your arts passport, inside there are a lot of fun stickers, and there are Post-it notes. The Post-it notes can be placed anywhere on any board with any comment. Just don't say anything too mean. And in the middle of the first gallery, between Gallery 1 and 2, is a map. And inside your passport, you'll see stickers about where you work, where you live, where you art and culture and recreate. If you could find all of those things on that large map, it would be great to understand the pattern of where everyone here tonight comes from and where you work and where you have fun and those things. On the back right, you'll see a large scale model. That's how things exist today. And so that's a tool that we're starting to use to imagine how things might be different. And in the center of the back two galleries, there is a taste test, which is what kind of building character or environment do you like? Do you like something that's really sculptural, or do you like something that's very clean and simple? There are a whole series of images that you can put a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And then to the right of that, what's your best and worst DPAC experience? I'm sure most of them will be best, and it'll be hard to find a worse, except when it comes to what? Parking? Oh, parking. And finally, if you haven't had a chance to do a questionnaire, it's online. Or you can do it on one of 3 iPads that Ginger has, or you can do it from a website link, which will be dpacmasterplan.com. And what's the other one? It's on your program. And I think that is enough from me for now, because we want time for all of you to make your way around. And I just want to say it's a pleasure to be here. Denver, I don't know if you know this living here, but coming from the outside, it's one of the hottest cities in the country. So when I talk to my friends, when I talk to colleagues in the office, when I talk to students that I teach at NYU and say that we've started a project in Denver, it's a reaction of excitement, because this is a destination now, and it's a very exciting place to work, and we're happy to be here, and we look forward to getting to know all of you a little better. So thank you very much.
Thank you once again for coming. It was really thrilling to see that we had so many RSVPs, and the community is really interested and engaged in work that we're interested and engaged in. So for those of you who do need to take off, we thought we would end the evening just to give you a sense of what's happening next, and when you can expect to hear from us again. For those of you who did register on the website to come to tonight's event, we now have your email address, and we'll be sure to keep you informed of when future meetings are. If you didn't register and you didn't sign in, please do that so we can capture your email address, and we can make sure that we notify you when things come up. But for those of you who are organized and want to mark your calendar now, these are the dates of future public meetings. So you're here tonight. Our next one is June 10th. Then we'll have one in October. That date might change because we have some scheduling things that might have to happen, and then we'll have another one in November. So those are the 4 public meetings that you're always welcome to participate in, of course. Then we have our executive leadership team meetings. Those are meetings that are open to the public, so you're welcome to come and observe and hear what the ELT is up to, the kinds of things that they're discussing. So do feel free to attend those. We change the locations, sometimes to the chagrin of our executive leadership team members. So be sure to check our website, and you have the web address on your the little sticker that's on the card here. So make sure to just double check those, because we do have to sometimes change those times or locations depending on what we're up to that month. Of course, the other thing that we would love for you to do is just to stay involved in any way, these different mechanisms. So we talked about the meetings. We also have 2 websites. Right now, we're working on building the one that's specific to this master planning effort. But all those materials can also be found at the artsandvenues.com website, /next stage. So the survey that is also on that website. So please fill out our online survey. We would love to hear from you that way as well. And then also on the website, and there was a couple people here tonight who said they did, and they have sent us comments and questions via an online web platform. So David here, for instance, is one that sent me a really nice email, and I turned around and invited him to come to tonight's meeting. So that's how those often work. But before we, you guys are again welcome to stay if you haven't finished your sticky note exercise or your dots. And really, how fun was that? Wasn't that, I've been to several public meetings. That was a pretty cool public meeting. So give it up for H3 for making this, I think, fun and engaging. But as Kent mentioned, if you guys have questions, we do have some time for questions, or feel free to continue to mill around and add your thoughts and your comments.